Hey everybody, welcome to the Magic Weekly News Update for May 6, 2018 on the Leek. I'm John as always, and there wasn't too much news this week, but a few things to talk about, and then of course we're back to Sunday story time. Up first, we got our first look at some cards from Battle Bond. The set's coming out in a little over a month, and it hasn't received much fanfare just yet, although I believe spoilers were said to start tomorrow or maybe next Monday. Anyways, we got to see the first 5 cards, and they've got Commander players really excited. In Battle Bond, we're going to be getting a cycle of 5 dual lands that enter untapped. Now, they don't have land types, so they can't be fetched, and of course the big restriction, which means only Commander players are excited, is that they only come in untapped if there's 2 or more opponents currently in the game. So obviously these won't really have much impact in Legacy or Modern or anything like that, or actually they won't even be Modern legal. Ignore me. Anyways, Commander players are super excited about this because, of course, in multiplayer Commander, you're going to have 2 or more opponents most of the time, unless it's down to the final 2. These will definitely be great quote-unquote budget versions of the original duels, although I'm sure they'll still fetch a pretty penny, especially in foil. Now, I'm not sure how much focus I'm going to give to Battle Bond. It's a supplemental product, and by the time it's out, we'll already be getting pretty close to Corset 2019. Odds are I might have one vlog, if it even ends up being played at my LGS. I might also buy a box in the hopes of someday figuring out something to do with it on stream, whether I figure out how to actually get a 2-headed giant draft format to fire in my office here. We were already cramped with 6 people for the stream drafts that we did, but I'll figure out something to do with it, I suppose. But all in all, I wouldn't expect too much content from me based on Battle Bond. Squee, shockingly, was in the middle of some big controversy this week. There's a pretty confusing interaction with Squee and Ixalan's Binding. If Squee is exiled by Ixalan's Binding, and you don't have a deep understanding of the Magic rules, you would think that you could not cast that copy of Squee, right? Ixalan's Binding says you can't cast spells that are named of that. Wrong. The first step of casting a spell is proposing the spell and putting it onto the stack. The stack is an actual zone in Magic, which is the first thing that a lot of people don't realize. When you cast, I've got Mishra's Self-Replicator sitting here on my table. When I cast that spell, or go to cast it, I take it from my hand and I put it into the stack zone. It is not in my hand anymore. So Squee, when I propose to cast it, comes out of exile underneath Ixalan's Binding and goes onto the stack. Then some other stuff happens. We determine the cost of it. We pay the costs of it. If he somehow got targeting restrictions or something, we would choose that. And then once all of that is done, the spell becomes cast, and then priority comes into play. At which point, Ixalan's Binding doesn't have anything exiled. So it's totally fine to cast that Squee. Putting the spell on the stack is not casting it. It's just the first step of getting to the point at which that spell is cast. So cool. You've got that. Good. Now go play MTGO or Magic Arena, and you can't do that. So it's a bug, right? Well, not quite. After a series of back-and-forth tweets involving Lee Sharp, the MTG Digital Product Manager, and Eli Schifrin, the Magic Rules Manager, it came out that the digital situation is the intended Squee Ixalan's Binding interaction, and that at some point, which hasn't been said yet, the Magic rules will be updated so that this is true for paper as well. So for now, we're in this very weird situation where the Magic paper rules are different than the digital rules. I am super not a fan of that as a player and especially as a judge, and I'm hoping that this rule change comes extremely fast, like this week, next week at the latest. I really do not like the split between Magic Digital and Magic Paper rules. That's a huge problem, and I'm really hoping that future things like this are done in tandem. If they know there's going to be this issue, if they've talked about it, make the rules change in digital and paper at the same time. Luckily, Squee isn't exactly seeing that much play, so the interaction shouldn't come up too much. Finally, this week we got some Magic 29 spoilers / leaks / intentional or unintentional marketing, a player with a box of Dominaria received packs that had a bunch of M19 commons intermingled in the packs. There's of course a bunch of reprints like Tormenting Voice and Active Trees and Inspiring Charge and a bunch more, because remember, Corsets are usually upwards of 50% reprints. The other cards aren't too exciting because they're just Corset commons, you know, 1 3s for 2 with lifelink, 4 2s for 3 with flavor text. The internet of course jumped to outrage about how awful the set looks after seeing only a handful of commons, which is of course ridiculous. Still, I do expect to hear a lot of griping about this set once the spoilers come out. It is a Corset, and the last time that we had a true Corset, Origins doesn't count, was 4 years ago. Doesn't feel like it, but it was 4 years ago. There are a ton of new players who have never seen a Corset. So if you're new, be aware that Corsets are intentionally simple, they are intentionally low power and low complexity, and they are full of reprints, and not necessarily amazing reprints. Tormenting Voice reprints, stuff like that. If it follows the usual structure, there will be one single returning set mechanic. We're not going to get 3, 4, 5 different set mechanics, we're going to get one, and it's one that we've already seen before. That doesn't mean it's bad. There have been extremely powerful format-impacting cards printed in Corsets. Scavenging Ooze, Primeval Titan, various Planeswalkers. We will most likely get 5 Planeswalkers, like every Corset we've seen so far. Possibly 6. I believe there was one set that had Nicol Bolas in addition to 5 Walkers. They're often totally fine to draft as well. And M13, in fact, is probably in my top 10 draft formats list. So if you're new to Corsets, temper your expectations, understand that they may not be perfectly designed for you, the super serious enfranchised player, and that they're perfectly designed for new players to get into the game, and to someday become your super serious enfranchised friends. So be aware of that if you're new to Corsets. With the news out of the way, let's go on to story time. So in episode 8 of the Dominaria story, we find Chandra has planeswalked to Ragatha, the fiery plane she walked to when her spark first ignited, and where she trained to become a pyromancer. She's there with a plan to help the Gatewatch fight Nicol Bolas. She enters Carol Keep, where she once trained, and heads to where the sacred relics are kept, to the pyromancer's goggles. Jaya's goggles. When she arrived on Dominaria, she noticed an ether trail of a powerful pyromancer, possibly Jaya, and she thinks that if she returns the goggles to Jaya, who hasn't been seen as long as Chandra's been alive, she'll prove that she's from the Keep and will make Jaya listen to her just long enough to explain that she needs Jaya's training and power in order to defeat Bolas. She is stopped by Mother Luti, an older member of the Keep who has no official rank, but who Chandra views annoyingly, always trying to make her learn things that Chandra does not have time for. Chandra hastily explains herself to Mother Luti and leaves before Luti can say anything to stop her. Returning to Dominaria and tracking what she hopes is Jaya's trail, she arrives in the city of Argivia, where people are hurriedly preparing to leave because of something. The something Chandra discovers is that the kobolds of Kara Ridges and their god dragon Prosh are preparing to attack the city. The city steward Baird, however, has a plan and has prepared his troops as well as a powerful pyromancer, although their name is not known. Chandra travels out of the city following the signs of the large mounted force. After a few days, she stumbles upon a dead body with the symbols of the Steward of Argive, and the body's fresh, so she hasn't missed the battle yet. Sure enough, she spots some kobolds setting an ambush who must have killed the scout as well as another scout she finds. Chandra decides to break up the ambush and bursts into full fireball flinging mode, hitting the, not goblins, kobolds, and trees left and right while trying to be controlling and not burn down the forest. The controlled approach turns to rage as some goblins charge her, and she incinerates several in a large swath of flame, as well as a bunch of trees. The Argivian troops arrive, and the kobolds, already singed and burned and scattered, are quickly routed. Baird thanks Chandra for her help, but Chandra is quickly disappointed to see that there's no one who looks like Jaya in their troop. She asks Baird if the pyromancer helping him's name was Jaya, and he confirms it was. But she left for the Avamaya coast, looking for a friend who's been gone for a long time, who he wasn't sure of. Chandra travels for days to the coast, wondering how she'll find Jaya when the wind carries the sounds of roaring and metallic banging. Seemingly a good place to start looking. Chandra arrives to a newly dug crater to find mechanical automatons doing the digging. They stop their digging as she approaches, but are facing the wrong way, to be interested in her. Then, out of the forest bursts animated trees attacking the automatons. Chandra instinctively runs to the battle, but has no clue what side to assist, not wanting to accidentally attack Jaya's friends. A tree breaks off and charges her, making the decision for her as she lights it up. An automaton arrives at her side and tells her that the trees will attack any movement, so be careful, and that they are trees created and sent by Multani. With Chandra's help, because, fire's pretty good against monsters made of wood and leaves, the automatons win the battle and thank her for her help. The metal automaton who thanks her tells her that Multani is an elemental in a semi-conscious state who's sending these trees instinctively to protect the forest from the digging. Presumably, Jaya wasn't searching for a semi-conscious tree elemental. She asks the automaton about Jaya, telling it that she was told Jaya was headed here to find a friend who's been gone for a long time. The automaton tells her that its name is Karn, and he's someone who's been gone for a long time. Just then, someone appears behind her, and it's Mother Luti, who's standing there, and Chandra is confusedly wondering, how is she here? She's not a planeswalker as far as Chandra knows. She stammers out some half questions as Mother Luti points to Jaya's goggles on Chandra's belt and says, "I believe those are mine." And that's going to wrap it up for episode 8 of Dominaria. I believe we only have 4 episodes left, which is still like a month, but still, we're getting towards the end of the story, which means Jace is going to appear pretty soon. I'm definitely enjoying the story. I think Martha Wells has been doing a fantastic job. If you have the chance, if you haven't, definitely go and read the story. Don't just listen to my updates if you can spare the time, because they are pretty well written. The story, starting with Ixalan, has really gotten a lot better, and I've really, really enjoyed it. Let me know anyways what you think of the news, the disparate rulings if you're playing paper or digital, the M19 spoilers, the Battle Bond spoilers. Let me know if there's something you really want to see Battle Bond content-wise. Again, like I said, I'm not sure how much I'm going to do. I'm not sure people are interested in it. Let me know. If you do have questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at @TheManaLeek. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. You can also find me at Facebook.com/TheManaLeek, Twitch.tv/TheManaLeek, and Patreon.com/TheManaLeek. If you like the content, click that thumbs up button. Click subscribe if you want to see more. And if you do have questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all next time.